provide free, impartial, knowledgeable advice and information to people who want to install a solar system or to implement an energy efficiency program, who would be able to understand some of the complexities involving financing these sort of deals, and explain them in clear language to people who are trying to figure out what makes the most sense for them in their situation. Certainly there are times and there are instances where a power purchase agreement makes perfect sense. Certain times it actually is quite appropriate for the end user to purchase a system. What is a power purchase agreement? Why should I care about RECs? And what are SRECs? What are we talking about with some of the complexity of these different ideas and concepts? So the idea was to have some consultants, have some people who weren't working for a solar company who could provide that sort of service. On top of that, because it's the Wild West out there, we decided to go out and identify a couple reputable companies that we could partner with, that we vetted, if you will, that we thought were a cut above, that were providing a high-quality service at a fair price, and were managing their businesses with some integrity, and recommend those folks. You don't have to use them, but we figured we would do a little bit of the vetting, a little bit of the research in advance, and say, okay, these are people that we know, and we can at least say, talk to them. Do whatever you'd like, but to at least talk to them. And that's the model that we developed. That idea has turned into Safe Solar. Indeed, we have signed agreements with three different companies, and I'm delighted at the results. It's starting to snowball. We're starting to get some traction in the area. We're actually getting calls from all over the place, not just Salem. Leominster, who knew? So we're starting, part of this is just to try to get a little bit of networking and word of mouth going about this sort of service. It can make a huge difference in the quality of a project that people put on their house and the investment that they're making. And that's what this is all about, is becoming a prudent part of the green revolution. We all know, or at least most of us know, and are living with the reality that we have to reduce our carbon emissions in this country by 80% or more in the next 35 years, by 2050. That's based on the science. That's based on the largest scientific study of any natural phenomenon in the history of humanity, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and their studies. How do you do that? How do you get a 4/5 reduction in our carbon emissions as a society here in the United States? One of the ways you do that is through distributed generation, through actually generating your power on-site or nearby. And one of the ideal technologies for that, one of the more mature technologies for implementing those sort of changes in the way we live and work and think, is obviously in solar energy, photovoltaics. Although I have to say, solar thermal, some of the payback on solar thermal right now is pretty good. All of us are going to be a part of the solution if we are going to actually achieve what we need to achieve in the next 35 years.
I was the first person to put solar on my roof in Salem in 2011. And I had worked in the solar industry. I no longer do. Worked for some solar companies doing logistics and scheduling and customer service and sales management. And solar is still pretty new in the country, but because of the incentives we have in Massachusetts, we have 458 solar companies in Massachusetts. So in 2013, Jeff Ely, who I'll introduce later, who is the energy manager Jeff alluded to, he and Jeff and I serve on the Renewable Energy Task Force in Salem, and asked if I would be this volunteer solar coach for a solarized program if the city would qualify. And every year the Mass Clean Energy Center, CEC, they're the ones who do all the rebates if you have Energy Star appliances, and the Department of Energy Resources, which dictates the energy policy for the state, picked 10 or 15 communities to be solarized. And Salem and Swampscott did it together. It was a 6-month program. Prior to Solarize, which was January of 2014, there were 12 installations in Salem, any kind, commercial, residential. During the Solarize program, 35 people signed up with the solar company that we worked with, and 35 people signed up with other companies, like Vivint Solar City. Since then, in a little more than a year, over between 300 and 400 permits have been pulled for solar just in Salem. And so Jeff and I came up with a program and met with SAFE to advise people and to counsel people and to coach them, no matter the size or the scope of the project, whether it's a nonprofit, commercial, whatever. One of the problems we had with the Solarize program, it was limited. We could only work with one solar installer. It was only a 4-month sign-up program. There were some other issues like that. And we have a goal of signing up more partners, if it makes sense, as we expand Safe Solar. So what I always recommend, just so you know, whether it's, and these guys may not appreciate all of this, but whether it's one of the partners that we refer people to or anyone else, I always say, don't sign anything until we've discussed the proposals together. So I'm going to first introduce someone who comes from the finance and investment community and has, I believe, 2 arrays right now and maybe more in the future. And it's really a pleasure for me to introduce Rob Lutz from Cabot Wealth Management.
I guess I'm here because I'm not in the solar business, but I'm an advocate of it. And the reason I'm an advocate of it is because I'm an investor. And when an investor sees something interesting, he usually gets involved in it. I did meet Jeff at the YMCA. He started telling me about the solar system he put on in Salem, the first one, which I guess I learned tonight. And I couldn't believe the numbers like he was telling me. And that's what I told him. I said, that sounds crazy, Jeff. And I thought he was a little out there, you know. But then I did the research myself and studied the proposals and studied the companies that make the solar programs. And I realized that something big was changing. And the thing that was changing was the cost of solar dropped 60% in the past 7 years. And that made solar really something efficient and something that could actually work for you. So I invested myself. I have 2 systems. I put one in a year and a half ago or 2 years ago in my office at 216 Essex Street. Put 18 panels on that. That's all I could fit there. And then I put 30 on my small office building I have at 30 Federal Street. And I learned a couple things from it. One I learned was it's a complicated thing to do, to understand. I think that's the biggest takeaway. Solar is not easy to understand everything. There's energy credits. You know, you look at your electric bill after you sign up, and you can't understand it. You know, I call them up, National Grid, and I say, could you explain to me how much energy I'm making on my system? And it's like I called from Mars. They have no idea what I'm talking about. So, and I think they've been trained not to communicate with people that own solar systems. We're the competition. So that's what I've learned. It's difficult, but I also learned it's worth it. It's a great investment. My 2 systems are going to pay back in about 5 to 6 years. One of them has got great position. I was able to put up 30 panels, and I think I have about a 19% rate of return. Now, I bought them from my company. My company owns them, so I also get depreciation benefits. So as an individual, you can't do that, so you're going to have a little harder time, but still, I think a good, fairly large system with a good position for the sun, I think you can get a very good return on your investment today. The key other part of that, and I think Jeff mentioned earlier, is the government pays for this, a very good part of it. 30% investment tax credit. Now that's only going to last till January 1st of 2017, so you got a little more than a year and 3 months. Then it's going to drop to 10% unless they extend it. If you talk to your congressman, ask them to extend it. We think it's a great thing to keep doing. But even if it does go down to 10%, I believe the cost of solar is going to continue to decline. That 60% decline we had over the last 7 years probably will continue, and we may drop 30% in the next few years. So solar's here to stay. I study changes in industries for a living. That's my job as an investor. And I saw the computer industry in the 80s come in, cell phones, you know, the internet, which was pretty amazing. This is one of those big changes right now in solar. And it's all because of the new advances and the ability to have it work. The number one reason solar is really, I think, a great thing for an investment is no moving parts. No moving parts. That's huge. When you look at a wind turbine, It's turning around, right? All kinds of action up there. It breaks down. You drive by a wind turbine often, and it's being repaired. This is not the case with solar. Solar has very little trouble. I mean, yeah, if you drop a tree on it, yeah, it's not going to work very well. You know, or if your snow is on top of it, it doesn't work very well. But other than that, it doesn't really break down, lasts about 30 years. The rate of return is really encouraging. Now, as an individual, if you can't write it off in a company, I think it's still probably, depending on the system, it all depends on the number of system panels you put in and the position of it. But there's no reason you can't get a return of 10 to 15%, I think, without using the depreciation benefits and other things like that. But so I'm an advocate, and I would encourage you, if you're seriously thinking about it, I think it's a good investment. And if I could put them on my home, at home I would do that, but I can't because I got too many gables and too many trees. But I would be doing more. I'm a big advocate. So, are there any questions about anything I said, or do you believe what I said? If it's owned by your business and you're using the electricity for your business, then I would think you can. But you need to talk to your professional on that.
Here's one thing that's very cool. Does anyone here own a multifamily home that's more than 2 families? If it's a multifamily home that's 3 families or more, you can depreciate the panels, just like Rob can. Okay? You cannot deduct it. So if you were a factory, you could do, it's capital improvement basically. You could deduct, just like you would putting a new boiler in, you could deduct the cost. But depreciating the cost of the panels for someone who owns a 3-family home is significant. If you don't know a lot about depreciation and you call your accountant and say, I heard I can do accelerated depreciation, 50% the first year or 85% of the cost of the system over 5 years. That's a lot. That would help anyone working class enough. No, if it's you can't, because your condominium is one parcel. I've worked with a lot of them, mostly in Salem, a couple in Beverly, anywhere from 3 units to 268. And in almost every case, the condo association itself is a nonprofit. Okay, and in addition to that, doesn't usually generate enough income by itself. So as Jeff was saying, there's a good reason sometimes to do a power purchase agreement or a lease. With a nonprofit, you cannot take advantage of the tax credit, the ITC, the 30% tax credit. So the solar company can, and they can sometimes offer a little bit more than they would on like a residential lease or PPA, because actually Josh and I are working on a project. Endless Mountains is working on another one, but Josh and I are working on a project that's almost 300 kilowatts for condo association. But you can't necessarily take advantage of the depreciation because it's not a business by itself. Does that make sense? In a situation like that, though, that is really something that your accountant would have to advise you on. Many accountants are very unfamiliar with solar, but it doesn't take a lot because deductible and deduction laws that they're using have been around a long time. And the great thing about solar is it's such a new industry that there's a lot of gray areas. And people are taking advantage of things that they didn't think they could in the past. One of the cool things about solar is if you purchase your system and you have to fix your roof or put a new roof on or take a tree down. We don't like taking trees down. Take a piece of the tree down so it still grows in a beautiful way. Or upgrade your electric from 110 to 200. Anything in anticipation of solar. So you can't, unfortunately, like Jeff did, put a new roof on 3 or 4 years ago and take advantage of this, but you can realize the 30% tax credit for those costs as well. So I know someone who is actually, as part of their package, is doing a renovation to the roof and upgrading their electric, which is like $1,000, $1,200, and they're taking the tax credit towards that. They may not be able to do it in the same year. When you use this tax credit, you can use it over 3 years. So if your tax credit is $8,000 and you only paid $6,000 in taxes, you can use the remaining $2,000 the following year. Thank you to Rob. Although Rob doesn't think he can put the solar farm on his farm, I know he wants to.
John Pickavage showed me how to do it.
And I still think that it's going to happen.
Okay.
Mayor Kim Driscoll.
I really feel really fortunate to be in a community that, one, embraces green the way we do. It's safe. It's great to have nonprofit community groups like that working with us. But then our Renewable Energy Task Force, which is more of a city organization, and Jeff Ely is here, who helps staff that group. And then to have a community that's just so green-minded and sustainable-minded. We really want to be the lead community for having solar installed. And programs like this help connect that match.com, right? Allowing the expertise of people who understand how this works, working with quality vendors, and putting it together with people in our community who are interested in doing this. I was talking to my mother-in-law, who doesn't live in Salem, but may still have to avail of solar coaching locally. It's complicated, right? She thinks it's a great opportunity, but do I have the right house? What's the right program? Do I lease? Do I buy? How do I understand all this? And having someone to help you through those, answering those questions, better understanding it, is really critical to getting it done. And so I look at this program like a Match.com opportunity to put expertise with homeowners to a place that helps our environment, helps our community, and allows us to be, I would love us to be the greenest community in Massachusetts, having the most solar on homes, and people getting the most benefit. We met today to look at our municipal aggregation rates. So in case you didn't know, Salem is part of a municipal electrical aggregation opportunity, meaning that we've harnessed all of the kilowatts that people use in Salem and bid that out through a company that will give us a municipal aggregation rate, a better rate. You don't have to use it, you can opt out, but you can opt in, and hopefully collectively we can get better rates for folks. Going through that process and trying to understand what's the best rate, how do we want to look at this, how much green do we want to support as a community. We're going to work with our RETF, our task force, on some of that. We've been working with our city council on it. Really helps show you how much electricity costs. So we can save potentially anywhere from $80 to $100 a year for the average Salem homeowner based on this municipal aggregation program. The sad part is it could be more if electrical rates go up. Not something we want to have happen, but it's pretty costly. We're in an area that sees a lot of demand. We know that everyone's trying to catch up in terms of meeting the infrastructure, but electricity costs a lot. So this program, if there's ways that we can save homeowners money, obviously be more sustainable, be a little bit greener as a community, it's a terrific win-win-win. And can't say enough about Jeff, the work that he's doing, and SAFE, that organization, bringing expertise local and making sure all of us can avail of these great products. So.
Jeff and I have been working on the municipal projects for probably 4 years. And we have been discouraged, you can only do this, that, or the other thing. We thought of it like, what do we want, not what they tell us we can get. And a lot of big companies said, we can only get X, Y, and Z. And we said, we think we can get Q, or whatever it is. And the first two projects, including one that's going on this building, for the school committee, and I want to thank the mayor because she was very instrumental in getting it through. But maybe if you don't mind talking like a little bit about that process and how great it is, because if people don't know about municipal, a lot of communities are investing, whether they put solar panels on landfills or transfer stations or schools or whatever. But in the history of Massachusetts, there is not one project that is even close to the innovative project that we're doing in Salem.
Yeah, so the municipal aggregation is for every homeowner or anybody who's using electricity. I'd say most of our really big users, if you were a company that powers up a lot, chances are you're already bidding electricity. In fact, the city, our municipal electric bills, schools, buildings, municipal buildings, we bid our electricity. But anybody who doesn't bid, your average homeowner, has the option of sticking with National Grid, our provider, or going through the municipal aggregation program. So that work is underway. What Jeff was just referring to is our own attempt with our municipal buildings, leveraging some dollars from footprint and some additional resources to put solar panels on the high school and the solar arrays at the Bentley School. And frankly, what that benefit provides to us, because we're getting some grant funds with it and we're able to leverage those dollars, and I don't know if Rob talked about this, but we don't have that upfront capital investment. We're going to be able to use somebody else's money to actually pay for the capital, which means we'll be able to get all the savings. They're great roofs, they're great areas in terms of catching solar. So all of the costs that we have for electricity within the high school, and certainly here at the Bentley, a vast majority of it, is not something we're going to have to be billed for. We're going to see those costs come down, but in essence, Once we work through all the logistics going in, we'll also have the recs coming back to us after it's paid off, after the capital.
It's over 100,000.
So I'm being conservative because that's what I like to do. But we're excited about the opportunity for us to be able to save some resources, both for our school buildings, for homeowners, and working to connect people through this nonprofit on your own homes as well. And it was a little hard to wrap your head around. Is this going to be real dollars and real savings? But it totally is. And getting the answers with people who know what they're doing and helping find the best program for you is what we're definitely interested in doing.
Our next guest is a city councilor, Ward 6, signed up under the Solarize program.
We got our panels, or we signed up for the Solarize program in June of 2014, and we did have a lot of questions about this. Did we have the right amount of sun? And so Real Good Solar came out and they did an analysis, and we were talking with Jeff constantly, like, does this make sense? Can we do this? Like, we'd really, really like to do this. And is our house in the right position? All of that. And so what ended up actually happening was, fortunately for us, we were in the right position, and we did have to trim a tree slightly, about like 10 feet, and we had over 80% sun. And so because we did this during the Solarize program, we ended up getting a system that would have cost us $25,000, and it only cost us about 10, with all of the different rebates and the tax credits and everything that we got back. And the extracts, thank you. It's been great, and so what we figure is that this will be paid off in about 4.5 years. We did actually go back and forth on the do we buy or do we lease, and what we found was that because we get the credit if we actually buy, that's what made much more sense to us. And this has been fantastic. It's really fun to get, like, can I say, like a $400 check like every quarter that we get back on our panels. Tax-free. It's just been a really great experience, and in fact, I have my phone with me because I have a little app on it that I look at this like every day, and I see how much my array is producing. As I said, I have 19 panels, and I can check each panel, and then when I look at the graph as to how much power, how much energy I'm producing. And what I think is really impressive is that so far since June, well, they came online in July of 2014, so since July of 2014, we have produced a lifetime of 7.54 megawatt hours of power. And so what this says is that we could power 249 houses for one day, and we've also offset the equivalent of 133 trees, which translate to 5.2 tons. So it's just, I can't say enough about it. It's just been a fantastic, fantastic experience. What also grabbed us about this was that, this will increase the value of our home, but it's not going to increase our property taxes as a result of this for about 30 years. And again, going through Jeff, I think we were constantly emailing and like, how do we do this? What is this for real? Can we really do this? Basically, like, we put a profit center on our roof. So I can't recommend it enough, and it's cool as all get out to just look at it and to see like how much we're producing. And actually, when I look at the graph for particularly over my lifetime energy, you can see where all of our awful storms were in February and January, when all of a sudden it just dips right down. Like, oh yeah, that's when all we had was snow. But then it goes flying up over 30 kilowatt hours a day, and it's amazing.
I want to talk briefly about community solar. If you rent, if you have a non-feasible home, we talked about this earlier for some of the people here. If you have a slate roof, if you have trees over your house, if you have too much shading facing the wrong direction, whatever it may be, you can still participate in solar. Not to the extent that you bought your own system and put it on your roof of your yard, but the typical solar farm, community solar, is a large company from Colorado, let's say, that gets a big, huge, an acre of land and puts a whole bunch of solar panels on it and gives you a 20-year lease or PPA, and you get a 5% discount on your electric bill. And I like to say, would you lease anything for 20 years for a 5% discount? Probably not, right? However, one of the partners that we have that's not actually physically here, they're a Wisconsin company that Jeff and I negotiated with. They're called Community Green Energy, CGE. And we have some information there, so if you don't own a home, or you don't want to put them on your house, we have a program for you, okay? And that program is going to be hopefully on one of the schools in Salem. And I mentioned this to people here in the beginning. And it will allow the city to benefit, and it will allow people to benefit individually. So we have a sign-up sheet. But the great thing about it is that people will be able to realize some of the SREC income. Solar renewable energy certificates, SRECs, are in lieu of a penalty that the for-profit or the public power companies would pay. It is an amount of money that you can, income that you can generate, you can sell for every 1,000 kilowatts or 1 megawatt that you generate. It's not an overage. It's not anything like that. It's 100% of what you produce. For every megawatt you produce, and the average home in Massachusetts produces 5 of these a year, you mint an SREC. I've never seen them. I produce 9 or 10 a year on my house, and I have never sold them for less than $200. Right now they're trading between $285 and $350. You sell them quarterly if you want to. You can hold them back. You can do whatever you want. You can hold them back for up to 3 years. Usually go to a broker. Just to give you an idea, these are tax-free because the intention is that they will pay for your system. This is one reason we recommend people purchasing systems. So Rob has realized this. One of the cool things, just from me personally, is you put your panels up, you start generating, you go 3 months, then the next 3 months you get compensated for the first 3 months, and it works that way. And I have already received $8,200 since 2012. And I will total a minimum of $22,000. And earlier today, Gus was going through some numbers. He's actually using his SRECs, his tax credits, and all this other stuff that he got. I think his payback is 3.75 years. That's pretty cool, right? Everyone's different. Depends on how they finance the program or whatever. Jeff Healy, who is Salem's Sustainability and Energy Manager, and runs the Renewable Energy Task Force. Jeff does a lot of things that no one knows about, like is really the driving force in the conversion to LED lights and the free bike program. And anyone here have a Tesla? Even if you have a Cobalt, is that the electric car, or a Leaf or whatever? Jeff has set up, I think there's stations for free electric hookups of electric cars in the 2 public parking garages. These are really cool. And he does a whole lot of things no one knows about, saves the city tons of money, and is really promoting a cleaner, more sustainable Salem.
I work in the planning department. I'm the energy and sustainability manager. And I work on all different types of projects. So I do energy efficiency projects, I do renewable energy projects, I do climate change initiatives, I do all types of different projects. And a couple years ago, we decided to get the community involved with solar by doing the Solarize Salem program. And working with Jeff, we were able to have a lot of success with introducing people to the idea of solar, not just residents and businesses, but also people in the city council, the administration, and get them on board with what solar is all about. And so, we had a very successful program, a roughly 6-month program. We got a bunch of people signed up, but really, and the reason why I work for the city is to save the city and the taxpayers essentially money. And I wanted to move on to the municipal side. So we were fortunate in getting some grant money, and Footprint needs to contribute some solar. So we are moving forward with 2 large-scale commercial projects that the city will own on the high school. So that's about a 500 kilowatt system on the high school. It's a there's a lot of panels. And then a smaller but still very large system here at Bentley School. It's going to be 250 kilowatts. It's going to be some panels on actually this building, and then a solar canopy that will go in the parking lot. We had to go before the school committee, and we had to get all the necessary approvals, and right now we're doing a engineering analysis of the two buildings before we move forward with an installer and get those panels built. We can predict those panels will be probably installed by the spring after the snow's gone. The idea is to get everybody on board and introduce the idea of municipal solar and then move on to other buildings. So we have proposals for Witchcraft Heights, we have proposals for Salt and Stall, we have proposals for the police, the fire, pretty much any building that has a roof that can be ordered, we can put solar on. So we have some flexibility in funding, and we're hoping to do a lot of purchasing, so we will actually get the benefit of the not only the electricity that we offset, but also the renewable energy credits. The money that will be generated on the schools will go back to the school department. You know, the money generated at the police station will offset costs of the police and fire and so forth. So we really think that we can capitalize on our open space and our roofs, and that's what I've been working on for the past couple of years. Jeff alluded to that we've been doing some community solar, and we are working with CGE on one school. We haven't determined what school that may be. It may be the Salt and Stall, or it may be Witchcraft Heights, but they're both viable buildings. So when we have more details on that, we will, people will be able to sign up, and we'll let people know. We received some money from the state for decommissioning our coal power plant. There's roughly $2 million we received to go towards renewable energy projects. We looked at different types of renewable energy projects. We looked at solar, we looked at wind, we looked at geothermal, we looked at a bunch of different ones. And solar seems to be the best kind of bang for your buck when you're looking at installing an actual project. And while that was also going on, Footprint has a commitment to offset greenhouse gas emissions in building the new plant, and they're going to do that through solar. But because of the layout of their property, they can't actually put solar on their property. So, and they had to put it somewhere, so they reached out to the city, reached out to me in the mayor's office and asked, can we contribute to a project where we fulfill our Massachusetts Environmental Protection Agency requirement through and pay for panels, and will that be okay? And right now we're working through some of the legal logistics of making that work. We're just about to sign a community benefits agreement with Footprint for that portion. So we're actually not using that grant money in its entirety for the high school panels. Most of the high school panels are going to be paid for by Footprint, separate from that money. So we can look to do more projects in Salem. And we're going to get all the benefit of the panels. Yes.
And we're going to get either on this project and the high school, we're going to get the SREC income. On some of the other projects, we may get a portion of it. But that's our goal, is not just to do a PPA, it's to get as much of the incentives as possible. We realize that the solar installer, they can use the tax credit to install and make some money, and they may need some of the SRECs, but in some cases they may be able to give us a portion or all of the SRECs. And that's a great thing for the city. Part of Salem is actually under sea level, like Canal Street. And the police station is very close to that. A lot of people, I think Barbara Warren left, but she does a lot of great speeches about climate change. She does a lot of work with Jeff in the city about how we can put plants on the beaches and do things that we can kind of retard the onset of the effects of climate issues, crises.
We did a climate change study a few years ago, and one of the sectors we looked at was energy. And we all know when we have storms, power gets knocked out, and we have problems of distributing, emergency vehicles. There's some initiatives moving forward in the state and at a national level, California and Connecticut, where they're looking at microgrid distribution. So you set up small, almost like power grids, where it's powered by renewables. It can either be wind or solar, and you have essentially backup power that can be distributed to small groups of homes. And the way that the Renewable Energy Task Force and myself have been thinking about this issue is how can we, at a municipal level, provide services for our at-risk community. And I think a lot of the community is underwater. I think if we have a big Superstorm Sandy type event, how people are going to be able to access resources. So an idea would be, we do a large system at the high school. We have some battery backups at the high school. People can go to the high school in an emergency situation, and they'd have power, and there'd be some kind of access to emergency resources. You can do that, so we'd like to do that at the municipal level, but you can also do that at the community level, so groups of homes can be powered by a system and power, and they can be sort of like small little power grids that would power homes. So these are things that the state's looking at, providing some grant opportunities to communities to look at resiliency. It's something that we can probably potentially integrate our solar panels into. So
I was invited by Jessica and the people from the Historic Commission to come. There's two components to this. One is that we have a very large historic district. So I believe Beverly, which has the same amount of people, a very historic town, has 50 historic homes. Salem, which has 12,000 addresses, has 658 historic homes. And so the goal is to work with the community, the historic district, and make sure that any installation of solar doesn't conflict with, their initiatives. So, for example, I told them that I would advise them anytime someone wanted to present solar. It's easier if it's not visible to the street, but if it is, the biggest issue that people have with solar is that they can see the sides of the solar panels, the aluminum sides. They can see the conduit that runs down the side of the building. And there are some things that we talked about. We haven't initiated it yet, but for example, right now, if someone wants to paint a door or a fence, they would work with the Historical Commission to talk about what the color would be, what would be appropriate. There's no reason that the conduit running down the side of the house shouldn't be the same color as the house, for example. There are skirts and other things, these guys know more about it than me, ways that you can kind of disguise the solar panels on the sides. Some panels are black all the way around. Some panels are black. Most people see panels as blue, but there's a lot of black panels now. But we are willing, I'm willing to work with anyone who wants to put solar on the house to make sure that any historic commission in the state approves it. One thing about solar that we found out during Solarize is that we're actually educated by the planner, Jeff's counterpart in Swampscott. Solar panels are freely removable, so they're not really under even though we have some guidance and regulations to the Historic Commission, anyone can really do it, but at very small cost to paint the conduit, to do the side. But yes, anyone can do it. I encourage anyone. I mean, my goal is that anyone who can put solar anywhere that can benefit them and the community should do it. I think Jeff shares that. We would like to work with them to get it, and what we tried to do is allay their fears that it's just going to be this bright thing that reflects badly. I believe that a lot of the homes that were built when Salem first was founded, the first couple of 100 years, people did passive solar. People understood things that they, faced the house a certain direction or whatever. So I kind of went to the Historic Commission with the idea that if the same people who were in Salem in the 1600s were here today, they would be going, let's put solar panels on those buildings, because they would have done it if they existed. So people who contact me were either already talking to a solar company and don't understand where they're going, or don't understand all the options, or referred by someone else. In Massachusetts, 100% of the incentives for solar go to the owner of the system. That doesn't mean that other people will benefit, because, for example, with community solar, you can still benefit, even though you don't own the system. So, for example, we have people from Solar City and Vivint who primarily do PPA leases, those kind of things, and you can save an extraordinary amount of money, okay? In most cases, you can save in the first year 50 or more, maybe 60% right now, of your electric bill. Just to go through the incentives real quick. There's the 30% federal tax credit, the ITC that Rob talked about. There's a state tax credit of a one-time use of $1,000. There's net metering that we talked about, where you offset whatever power you produce. Right now it's at meter, so $100, $100, you might pay $4 fee a month. And then there's the SRECs or the SRECs, okay? And those are powerful. And those are, you know, depending on how the laws change, as Rob alluded to, the federal tax credit expires in January 2017. The SRECs, you can sell them, right now it's SREC 2, it's the second program, you can sell them for 40 quarters or 10 years. After that, they turn into SRECs, which are really a much, kind of a minimum amount of money that you might be able to recoup. However, if you sign up before anyone changes the laws and tries to get rid of the SRECs or anything else, you are grandfathered into that program. And from this point on, there's never a better time to participate, okay? Because of the potential of some of these things expiring or changing. But they can't raise the value of your property tax based on the increased value from the solar panels for 20 years. If you sell your house, so let's say you put the solar panels up, most panels and inverters, the equipment that you would put on your roof, has a 25-year warranty. The state mandates that the solar companies give you a 5-year workmanship warranty on the roof. It's kind of mute because you're going to know if they did a good job the next time you have a big rainfall or something. But they're required to come back. And I found on my roof, which I have a pitched shingle roof, and then I have a flat roof with, you know, a rubber roof. I had some leaks into my attic apartment, and the solar company, not the roofers that I had hired to come and fix my roof, but the roofers for the solar company found the leaks and at no extra price fixed those holes, okay? So, you know, all the solar companies have licensed electricians on your roof and in your basement, you know, and they also have roofers. And in many cases, the roofer is an electrician, and they're very experienced in both things. The average house in Massachusetts is a 5-kilowatt system. If you finance the system yourself, the average payback is 5 to 7 years. If you use a no money down loan, which both of our partners offer, it will be a term of about 10 years, which mirrors the SRECs. And instead of a 5 to 7 years, obviously that's a 10-year payback. So you will own your panels without putting any money down in 10 years. And you will own the power from day one. Although we at Safe Solar recommend purchase as much as possible, there's a wide spectrum. There's a wide spectrum of leases and PPAs and purchases. I don't know what you guys are at now. 10.5 cents, 11.5?
11.9.
11.9? Okay, so that's pretty good considering most people here are paying somewhere around between 20 and 24 cents a kilowatt. For purchases, depending on the quality of the equipment, and one of the things that we value in our partners is they carry really great equipment, really great panels, really great inverters. And as Rob said, there are no moving parts. They're fairly indestructible. Okay, think of your roof. What are the worst things for your roof? You've got the sun that hits it in the summer, especially on the south side. These panels are really insulate the roof, okay? In the winter, you have snow. They can't put, none of the companies can put solar panels on the roof unless the roof can withstand a certain amount of snow load or weight, which is mostly snow load that they anticipate. And in a typical installation, the snow comes off the panels because they're maybe warmer, tilted, maybe a little slick, faster than the rest of the roof. So it potentially extends the value of your roof. What I typically do, I'll have a conversation with you about your particular situation. I can talk to you about the finances in general and how certain systems work. And then if you're interested, I'll connect you. Typically what I do is generate leads to these guys. They send someone out, they do a site visit, they give you a proposal, and then I, either in person or over the phone, just sit with you and point out on the same lines, on the same things, you know, how much the production, the quality, the equipment, whatever it may be. I just point out the differences. And, you know, some people want to go with something because it's a souped-up system. Like if Dave over here will raise his hand, he has tier 1 sun power panels. They're pretty good. They're super efficient, but they're not for everyone. And sometimes it's the payback, sometimes it's how much production, it's how much SRECs. The more you produce, the more SREC income you get, the more power you offset. So I, last week, reviewed 7 proposals with one homeowner, 7 different companies. I did another which had 10 proposals, including, believe it or not, 3, I don't know why, Boston Solar had 3 of them. 3 different tiers of equipment. So there's a lot of different dynamics that you need to consider.
We've been in business for over 35 years. Haven't been in solar that long, obviously, but many other energy products. And I love what Jeff, you partnered with Jeff in the city of Salem. We are really proud of what we do and how we do it. I tell people, and I teach my account managers that will meet with you, that we don't sell. We facilitate the buying process. You're obviously interested in solar or you wouldn't be here. I like what Jeff says, don't sign anything, you know, let him look at it. I agree with that. We would rather educate you than to just try to get you to sign on the dotted line. That way when you make your decision, you're truly going to be happy with it. So if you're really interested, talk to more than one company. Don't sign with the first company. I totally agree with that. Make some comparisons, and you know, service, customer service particularly, is really important to us. A lot of our business is referral business, and we want to continue that. That's the best kind of business to have. People are happy that way, and we don't have to fight or push.
A little bit about Boston Solar, local company based in Woburn, over 100 employees in state. A good majority of them live actually up here on the North Shore. I personally live about a couple blocks from here, so very local. I've worked with a ton of people in the area, have a lot of good local references. One thing that makes Boston Solar a little unique is we have all in-house employees, so no subcontracted work. Everyone you'd be dealing with would be a Boston Solar employee. We also have a wide variety of offerings, from PPAs to purchase, and then when you're looking at a purchase, a couple different panels we offer. So don't have an agenda essentially to convince you any one thing is better than the other. Just put the options out there, and then, you know, sounds like Jeff can help you decide what's best for you. So that's it.
As much as we value our partnership with these guys, I'm sure as they make money, and we want them to make money, and we want everyone to make money who sells solar, I'm sure they want you to sign something. I'm just saying, as the solar coach, let's review everything. The typical lease or PPA that people would do with a nonprofit is mostly going to give you a discount on your power rate. You know, maybe it's 14 cents. It depends on what they have to do. For example, Josh and I are working with a condo where there could be a lot of trenching on the property, and that could increase the price. So just like the schools, where this building, for example, might need a new roof. If that's the case, that will be the reason that the amount of money that the city is saving is going from a couple $100,000 to $100,000 the first year is because the solar company will finance the new roof. Okay? Now, just like with the municipal projects, where Jeff Ely and I feel like if you're going to get a lease or a PPA, so these buildings are PPA, power purchase agreements, Actually, in these cases, the city will own the panels, but in the other projects we're doing, there will be a straight lease or PPA. But as I said before, we're not going to do with the city any project where the solar company doesn't give us some of the other incentives. And I think that anyone, especially a nonprofit, and I can talk to you about it, off-site and give you some of the ideas, but both of these companies, through the finance companies that they use for, leases. So when a company does a lease, it's like or a PPA, it's like when you buy a house and then about a month later, the mortgage is transferred to some other company you never heard of. It's the same thing. All these companies either finance the program themselves or use some kind of bank that does it. We have been able to negotiate either a portion of the SREC income or maybe even a portion of the ITC. But my recommendation is, especially on a nonprofit, condos, anything like that, that too often, especially a big project, the solar company is making a lot of money. Remember, the more panels that these guys buy, the cheaper the panels cost. There's no reason that you shouldn't realize some additional incentive. And a lot of times it's just asking.
Does it become less cost effective for the homeowner who purchases panels when the SRECs go away, which they will in the next year?
No, because under the SREC program, they still have 40 quarters to sell the SREC. So if the SREC program changes, anyone who signs up when the SREC program changes or goes away, those people will have a different scenario. But currently, if you signed up today, as long as you register your SREC, okay? So for example, the company that you use, or any individual person, I always recommend that you don't call up National Grid and say, hi, this is Fred, I want to sell an SREC, So I go through an aggregator or broker, but that broker, just like with Vivint, they can register the SRECs as soon as the power company authorizes the connection. It doesn't have to be up and running. They just have to authorize it. So, for example, with the schools, we are going to register the SRECs maybe 3 or 4 months in advance of the project being finished. So, you're right. When the SREC program changes, the financial scenario is going to change. But anyone who signs up now is going to realize the value of the SRECs as the program exists today. Now, there are a lot of instances. If you're retired, if you don't generate a lot of income, whatever it may be, typically the purchase with a no money down loan and the lease or PPA requires approximately the same credit worthiness. I'm going to throw something out at people. Actually, Josh and I have joked about this for a while. The Mass CEC announced the Mass Solar Loan a year ago. It was supposed to come out in the spring, and then they said it would come out in the summer, and now on the website, I printed the page from the website this week. It's called the Mass Solar Loan. It's through the state. It's like, does anyone know the heat loan? Like if you got Energy Star windows or put something, solar thermal on your roof, you can get, I think it's a 6-year interest-free loan up to 7 years? 7-year interest-free loan that you get to a local bank. The one thing that's holding this up is the local banks. I don't know if it's Eastern Bank, Salem 5, but they're not all signed up yet. But let me tell you what this loan is. So, number one, if you sign up with someone like Boston Solar Endless Mountains and you decide to go with the no money down loan, it will be a 10-year term. You will pay whatever the interest rate is. They will show you what the payback is, how much the loan is per month and approximately what they estimate the SREC income to be. The Mass Solar Loan, if it comes out, will be $3,000 to $35,000, less than 3% interest, 10-year term, and it says a credit limit or credit worthiness less than the typical. So that is a powerful tool that they think will power a lot of residents to enlist with solar. But I'm going to say this, and I think everyone here who sells solar will say the same thing. The sooner the better. SRECs are very high right now. They're trading, like I said, between 285 and 350. Okay, if you sign up right now, if you purchase panels, you're going to have a scenario where I believe the first 3 years, the minimum is something like $285, and there's a floor that's somewhere a little bit below $200. I believe it's better if you're going to purchase, and the Mass Solar loan hasn't come up, to do it. Just go for it. Okay, finance it, equity, do the no money down loan, whatever, because the more you start producing now, the more income you'll get from the SREC and higher income from SREC. You really need to do, if you want to take advantage of the tax credits, you need to be, these guys talk a little technical, the COC and everything else, but think about it as National Grid or whatever company you're working with, and Marblehead Light and Power needs to turn the switch on, and you need to be realizing the solar. And it's the same thing with companies that do PPAs. So you guys are still doing mostly residential. You're not doing the bigger projects. So Vivint does mostly, really just under 10 kilowatt, pretty much, right? Solar City does a lot of different stuff. These guys do everything. So as a solar coach, one thing I can say to anyone, if you're interested in solar, and if you have a nonprofit like you were saying, or in a condo, or a larger project, it's more important to accelerate the process. And that's because, for example, condos, you have to deal with the condo board, and everyone has to have a say and throw darts at a dartboard or whatever, but it's much easier for someone who has a single family home to make a pretty rapid decision. It's a lot harder to process the bigger projects, and if it's a project in National Grid that's over 10 kilowatts, it could be a stall right now. Talk to as many companies as you can, and I think people who have had me as a coach will know that I just look at what's the facts that are on the sheet, and I was talking to Rick about the fact that I've actually talked to people who actually don't want to purchase for whatever reason, and I just will review different, PPA options and lease options. And I really feel like a lot of people, unfortunately, sign up with whoever's first in their house or first calls them on the phone. For example, I'm going to embarrass them because I am a really big Patriots fan. I think I'm the biggest Patriots fan who ever lived. It pisses me off that this company, NRG or whatever they are, claim they're the official power company of the Patriots. And if you watch their commercials, which you cannot avoid because they're everywhere, the guy who says they got a 20% discount on hummus, so why can't I do it? They offer a 20% discount for a 20-year contract. You guys would say that's absurd, right? So I feel like, unfortunately, we've all gotten a million phone calls. I mean, I own solar. I'm a solar coach. I get 5 or 7 phone calls a week. You got to know that there's a lot of stuff out there. If you get a call from a telemarketer, you've got to know that there's good programs out there that someone can have a face-to-face with you. And it's always better to do.